Yeah.
You just got to throw him on. He
Nice to
wasn't
meet
supposed to
you.
be on, but he's got to take care of Sam.
We got to train people to take over from you, take over from me.
That's what we're trying, but
Welcome.
oh, we all?
Yeah, we are.
Welcome to the Taylor Park Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We've got an awesome cast here tonight. So I'm going to let Pokey go ahead and introduce our guest.
Jude? Welcome one of your first times to be on this show, right?
The first time, yeah.
I didn't think I'd lose my memory that much, but you okay. Sam Osemene. We all remember Sam Osemene from a while back.
Oh, yeah.
And of
Remember
course,
Sam?
yeah, we have, and I know you're active out there.
Absolutely.
I know you got the restaurant going and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Good, where you can get Taste of Africa or something like that. What's the name of it?
Nigerian restaurant and African market.
Doing good, right?
Where's it
yeah.
located?
10805 North Lamar Boulevard.
On North
Well,
Lamar.
out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we'll come get some good food.
Come and get some good food.
And for,
Awesome.
we all know Ed English over there. Thank you, sir.
Ed, it's good to see you.
Ed English has been pushing this CodeNext for, I don't know.
Pushing a petition.
Well,
CodeNext.
you've been involved.
Yeah.
You've been involved with CodeNext since probably the beginning,
Yes,
if I recall.
that's correct.
And of course, Casey Ramos! Hey! Check him out. Shout out to
That's
Joe,
in North Austin.
King of the Ring.
Is he 4-1?
Hey, Sport Paul.
Oh, 4-4. Well, shucks.
7744.
He's
Yeah, he represents the
4-4.
hood.
He's a 4-4 hood, huh?
And we know things like CodeNext is going to affect 44 real hard.
Oh yeah. I've been involved with CodeNext with my good friend here, Ed English, for a little while now, and studying and analyzing and trying to give every benefit of the doubt. But,
Well, before you get started, for the people that are watching us that don't know anything about CodeNext, explain to them what is CodeNext, because out there you'll see I saw a sign even on my way over here about CodeNext saying for it'll mess up everything. So
that's it won't mess up everything because we do need our code land development codes rewritten. But, CodeNext is essentially the rewriting of all of Austin's land development codes through Imagine Austin. Imagine Austin is the comprehensive plan that we initiated in 2012 for Austin. A part of that Imagine Austin plan was CodeNext, which was to rewrite the land development codes, which is going to tell us what we can build where and how much and what Austin's going to look like in the next 20 years. So that's essentially what it is, and we want it to be equitable for our entire city. And I'm sure Ed can elaborate a whole lot more than that, but that's the basic.
I've been working since last Tuesday, I've been working at the early polling locations. We do have a petition that we are promoting and being successful with it thus far to put CodeNext on a ballot. And when I'm talking to the voters, I have a very limited amount of time to explain what CodeNext is for those that don't know. But I just tell them it's a citywide, top-to-bottom rewrite of our zoning codes and our land use regulations that will determine how Austin grows for the next 50, maybe perhaps 50 years and even beyond.
So are you saying that this will cut back on some of the gentrification that's happening?
There's no guarantee of what will happen, and that's, I think, one of the big question marks. That's something that a lot of voters are asking, and the potential for that is there. Of course, you're going to hear two sides of that issue. We think, and at least my participation at this point currently, is to get it on a ballot so that the voters can form their own opinions. Draft 3 is out. I caution people to not consider Draft 3 the finished CodeNext because there'll be weeks of public input, city staff input, council input, and it will very likely change before it reaches a point where the council actually votes on it.
Can I put in here?
Wow.
I believe it will be heavy on gentrification. You got a single-family lot out there, especially on the east side in the lower-income neighborhoods like the 44. You'll be able to take that single-family lot, and I think they'll even make it smaller. It's like, 2,500 square feet for a single-family lot. They'll say, well, you can make it 2,100 square feet. And then when you do that, they'll also say, well, you can make it 2 dwellings, a duplex. This is, what do they call it, a density. They're wanting to increase density, and of course, they're not going to go to them nice neighborhoods the other side over there by Mopac and do this. It's going to be most of these low-income neighborhoods on our side of 35.
Yes.
And you tear down grandma's house. What's they go?
Well,
And zero lot line development. You got your big 2-story duplex going up.
See,
When you
That'll be your money.
when you look at how it is shaping up, there's certainly a significant potential for that to occur.
Significant. I thought that was illegal.
All
right,
Can I
I'll
say
get
something
carried away.
about this? Can I say
Throw it in
something?
there.
Personally, I'm against the whole CodeNext issue because if you read the handprint, it's one-sided on the side of developers, big corporations, and look at East Austin as an example.
Money, money, money.
I think Mr. English just mentioned they want to put it on the ballot for people to decide. But presently, it's being enforced. Look around the city of Austin, look at East 11, East 12, gentrification all over. Taxes are going up.
East Asney.
You know, if you look at it, in fact, if you look at CodeNext, it has contributed to the lower percentage of African Americans in the city. Look at East Austin. I think we should go back and rethink this whole process. CodeNext is supposed to be there's supposed to be a process where the community has to collaborate, has to have an input in the whole process, but it has not been done yet. But the city has moved forward, building everywhere they want to build. So I think, you know, we have to really take a break. When I hear comprehensive plan, I get scared because we know what that means. It's displacement, high taxes, and it's not right. You know, every time I look at East Austin and see poor individuals, the black population is decreasing, we keep asking why. I promise you, CodeNext is one of the reasons why we see all this gentrification. And I don't think we should support that personally.
Well, another thing too, you know, you indicated that Imagine Austin's been around since 2012, and I remember going to some of those early meetings, you know, speaking up about how I would like my city to look, and so forth. So, do you still have the Imagine Austin meetings, or is it already things are already set into place already?
I'm not sure about Imagine Austin. I think the biggest key to Imagine Austin is CodeNext.
Okay.
So
They give us
CodeNext is essentially a part of Imagine Austin. So every CodeNext meeting is an Imagine Austin meeting.
Okay.
So
Those-
that's
those-
what, yeah.
I think she's asking, no, those community meetings are over.
Okay.
Well, yeah, most are. It's still
The
but
ones where you
after-
actually go into little groups and tell them what you
Right.
want.
Yeah.
Right, but that's still a possibility. It's not set in stone yet, and so we have
Is that
groups
right?
ourselves. We have nonprofit organizations. I'm sure. Can I mention those?
Yeah.
We have Community Not Commodity. We have Save Our City Austin. We have Ed English's organization. I'm not sure.
Indy Austin.
Indy Austin. We're all working on that right now. So if it does go to a vote and we vote it down, we want to have something that's in place already that we can show them like, hey, you know, we can't just say, oh, you know, we can't just analyze and dissect CodeNext and say this is what's wrong with it and us not have the correct solution, right? Something to back it up, which is already in place. That's the thing. CodeNext has already been written by each individual neighborhood. All the land development codes have all of the neighborhoods have a contact team.
Yes.
The Southeast contact team, the North.
They do.
Okay, right?
Yeah.
Each one of those organizations has already written their neighborhood plan.
So
already.
why is so who's trying
Exactly.
to?
And so it's already enforced.
Well-
It's
Right.
already.
Okay, if that's a problem, that's what I said. You know, we talk about, okay, Mr. English wants to put it on the ballot, right? But already it's been enforced. So it doesn't make sense to me. Why can't they suspend the whole CodeNext proposal, let the people decide if they want it or not?
Well, my thing is that even though, because I was part of a contact team for one back in the day too, but the thing is, and we said a lot of things, but the city still have presidents and still do whatever it is that they want to do.
I'm going to back that up.
Go for it.
A lot of the concerns, I've done probably 30 or 40 presentations in the last 6 months at various neighborhood associations, events put on by the city, events that we've put on, and one of the common complaints is that the neighborhood plans and the contact teams and the input that they've offered on CodeNext has been virtually ignored.
Absolutely.
That
That's
has
a
been
problem.
set aside
Yes.
in the interest of developing something to supersede that.
Exactly.
So
So what can you do? I mean, you have all these things put in place, but the city still does, you know,
What they
has
wanna do.
yes.
Well, if if CodeNext ends up on the ballot, if we're successful with this petition, and if it goes forward, we live with whatever CodeNext looks like. If it gets on the ballot and the voters vote it down, I've heard a lot of concerns about, well, what happens then? It's not a lot of people say, well, we spent now $8.2 million on CodeNext. We've spent years on it. It does not mean that CodeNext disappears. It simply means that it doesn't go into effect as it is written. We can take what of it we like and use it, but that would provide us an opportunity to reassess it, to rewrite it, and to take some of this contact team input that's virtually been ignored, some of these neighborhood plans, and reincorporate them into whatever you want to call CodeNext in the next generation, and maybe make something better out of it that's better for the city, prevents the gentrification, or at least slows it down, for goodness sake, and we end up with a plan which has something more beneficial that the people would be willing to accept.
Oh, okay, Mr. English, you mentioned the neighborhood plan, right? Instead of putting the CodeNext on the ballot, why can't we pursue the neighborhood plan first? Because if you live in a neighborhood, you know what's going on in the neighborhood. I think it makes more sense to me to suspend, fighting for something to let's put it on the ballot or let people decide on that issue. Whereas the neighborhood plan is still pending, it's out there, but the city of Austin is ignoring that because it doesn't buy into the whole quote unquote.
Well, I'll respond to that, because if you don't put it on the ballot, you're going to live with CodeNext. I follow.
Those neighborhood plans go out the window.
So is CodeNext on the ballot or the neighborhood plan on the ballot?
What happened?
CodeNext
It's on
will
the
be on
ballot.
the ballot, not the neighborhood
Okay,
plan.
that's what I'm saying. Why can't we substitute CodeNext instead of pushing for CodeNext? Let's go to the neighborhood plan. Let the people in the neighborhood. Let's look at what they have here. Each neighborhood will have their own plan.
Well, the
Let's look at
those neighborhood plans have been filed, haven't
Exactly.
they? But the thing of it is that they've been ignored
Absolutely, that's
by
the
the
problem.
city. So he's
That's-
saying if we don't do CodeNext, then we really SOL.
Yeah, but
Well, if we don't do CodeNext, you have an opportunity, if it should be on the ballot and it fails, you have an opportunity to look at other alternatives. But we are so far downstream with CodeNext that you're going to try to stop a speeding train right now. You need to put, if you do not favor CodeNext, and many, many people do not, you need to put it on the ballot and stop it, and then the door will be open for other alternatives.
okay. Before we had this CodeNext, what was in place? What was the city? What was the plan in place before CodeNext? If we don't put it on the ballot, or if it fails, what can we go back to what we had before? Then we can sit back and say, you know what? Let's figure this out the right way. Let's do a neighborhood plan.
That would be an option if CodeNext does not go forward. Precisely what you're suggesting. We can look at alternatives. But to be quite frank, CodeNext, there's a sufficient support on the city council right now, and I seriously doubt that the votes are going to change much regardless of the tweaks they make to it before council votes on it. There are votes on city council right now to pass
Put that
CodeNext.
back up
I
now.
don't trust those people at the city council. I don't trust any one of them over there.
Then put it on the ballot and tell them that you don't like it.
Well, if they want to put it on the ballot, I will wait for them to leave, because right now the whole city council down from top to bottom, personally I think they're all.
Well, look at it like this. Right now, there is no vote. It's going through.
That's the
Right.
problem. That's the problem.
Okay.
Well, they know,
So then that's why we're working so hard to put it onto a ballot where there is at least the option there.
but the
Because
problem
if we spend-
the problem I have with it is, you go to East Austin. I keep saying this. I remember when I ran for city council, it was a top issue: gentrification. We know that. Go to East Austin, talk to people in the neighborhood. You wonder, like I said, black population is decreasing, moving from Austin to Pflugerville. It's part of it.
The population percentage
Well-
is decreasing, not the entire
Yes,
population.
we can play with the statistics. We can play with
No,
the
that's
fine.
the actual count, the raw number.
Yes, it's
The
decreasing.
African American population is decreasing both by percentage and by raw number. By count.
Absolutely, we know
Both
that.
are going down.
It's going down. Then you ask yourself, what is the reason? I remember back in the
Can't
90s.
afford to live here.
Yeah, you can't afford to live. I remember in the 90s, I go to East Austin. We used to hang out there. Our grandma, grandpa, they used to live in East Austin. Where are they? When all these CodeNext, the big developer from California, New York, they come to our neighborhood, they invade us like ants. Now, with the support of these CodeNext with the city of Austin, and you want it to, now I think something has to change.
Well,
Yeah.
we know it does. So they call that a revitalization.
Oh, big word.
Smart growth.
For
That's
who?
the-
Yeah,
that-
okay.
that's what
They
the-
sell it on revitalization.
Now, everything we're talking about, I want to liken it to Obamacare.
Right.
Okay, so everybody complained about Obamacare, and we still do. But the fact is that what is taking its place? So that's where you're at. Okay, so we've got this, it's really a good, a deal I can liken it to, because I'm like, you know what, Obamacare is not working, if we don't, there's certain little things and this and that we can take from it. So you're saying with CodeNext, there are some things that with what we're working with now and dealing with now, there's certain things that we can take from it.
Exactly. And I'm going to offer strictly a personal opinion here. I think there are some elements of CodeNext that are worthy of implementing, but as a package, it's highly questionable. And I think that ultimately the voters need to have an opportunity to say, this is good for Austin, this is not good for Austin. If they vote it down, then the door opens up to look at a variety of other options that might take some pieces out of CodeNext that everybody agrees on or most people like, and add back in some of the contact team suggestions, some of the neighborhood plans. It really should be something that every part of the city, every neighborhood should analyze and think about, and whether this is good for Austin, their neighborhood, their community, and make a decision as to whether or not they want it to pass as a package, because that's what we want to put on the ballot, the CodeNext package, not bits and pieces. You don't do that with an initiative.
But is it possible, Mr. English, this is my suggestion, think maybe someone would think about it. Instead of putting it on the ballot, like everybody in the city of Austin has to vote, we can vote district by district. If you like it, let your district vote for it. If it passes, fine.
That's an idea.
District by district makes more sense to me. Because I promise you what's going to happen is those that live in West Austin, Sixth and Lamar area, they're going to come out and vote in support of it. You know why? It does not affect them the way it affects us in East Austin.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. It does.
Yes, I would say
It's supposed
that.
to affect
Well, it does.
the entire city,
Exactly.
right?
But it does.
But it doesn't affect the entire city. You know that. Go to Montopolis, go to East Austin,
right.
and go to West Austin.
Well, I think there's more. So there's more of an opportunity for it to be affected. So it is going to be affected more. But I'm saying I wouldn't say that not everybody is affected, because
Okay, how is
there are
it going to
people-
affect West
in
Austin?
West
Tell me,
Austin.
how is it going to affect West Austin? Tell us.
They can build a duplex out there too if they want.
Yeah, they can do the same
You
thing.
think it's going
Nobody's gonna want to.
They can't even
Yeah,
build a
but, I
stadium.
mean, they
They
have
can't even
done
build a
it. They
soccer
are doing
stadium
it.
on
It's
the
gotta
west
be
of
out
Austin.
east to 35.
You kidding
Hey,
me?
look, I'm as passionate as yes, it's going to affect the whole city.
No,
it's
we're
gonna-
not. Let's not say it's going to affect all these cities. That's the same language they use to deceive us. We know the game before. We've seen this movie many times, and we know the end of the movie. It's not going to affect the whole city the same way. Gentrification
Right,
will
the
affect
same,
East Austin more
not
than
the
West
same
Austin.
way. Not the same way.
Exactly.
I think it's important to at least be clear on a couple points here. The CodeNext will, in essence, on paper, affect virtually every property in Austin. Having said that, the reality is that's not going to happen. There will be areas that will be very hard hit.
Sure.
And one of the things that's clearly becoming evident with this CodeNext approach is that not only will there be additional gentrification of East Austin, or that's highly likely.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything's a guarantee, but I'm going to say it's a
I
highly probable.
agree with you.
You're also looking at almost what I would call sort of an income segregation or an income gentrification, because there are other parts of town, and I happen to live far north central, but I'm very in tune with that part of town. There are a lot of neighborhoods that are essentially the older residents who have been there. In some cases, the family's been there for generations. They're simply going to be priced out of it, because what can be built right there will raise their property
The value.
taxes so much
Exactly.
that they're going to be forced out as well. So this displacement, maybe that's a better, broader term.
Absolutely.
It's going to spread. It will affect other areas of town.
That's okay. On our side is gentrification, on your side is displacement. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and
It's the same thing, but on a different level.
Income.
Do you have the same?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you got a 2,000-3,000 square foot home, it's gonna be displacement. But if you're over here on the east side with, you know,
We move you out.
1,700.
That's a very valid point. You call it different things. It's different
Well,
things to
same
different
thing.
people. But
I see what you're saying, it will affect the whole city.
it will.
But over there on
Different.
Mesa Drive, they're not likely to be,
No.
building no duplex on it, zero lot line construction.
Westlake Hill, nah.
The market
Yeah.
forces will determine what goes where.
Jay?
And-
I think I have something to say here.
Um,
Say it, speak it up.
Yeah, I've always lived on the east side of Austin since I came to this country, and I still live there now. The issue on ground is you can see the massive extinction of the black community on the east side. When you go to
Is that extinction or genocide?
it's a gradual one. Yeah, and if
Fernandez Jr. says it's genocide.
yes, and if necessary steps are not taken, it will be a total extinction, because you see a big company like Oracle, you know, there was a lot of black communities around that area on Pleasant Valley and Riverside. Oracle has
Lakeview.
their big
Or the
building
Yeah.
that have chased people out. When you look at East 7th Street, between Chicon and Pleasant Valley, it wasn't like that back in the days, 4 or 5 years ago. You can see the massive displacement in that area. So what I am suggesting is whether CodeNext or any other avenue possible, you know, to help the situation, so people can see that they are not displaced. You know, that's my contribution. Yeah.
Is it, my next question to you, sir, is who is funding Imagine Austin? Who is sponsoring? Who is paying for it?
The city of Austin.
Okay,
And
so
they
it's-
have a $1 million budget for
So-
a public
Okay,
outreach.
so
I
the
mean,
city of
for-
Austin set it up, call it Imagine Austin. They came up with CodeNext, right? Now the city say, oh, they pretend as if they don't know what's going on, but they set it up. They pay. So basically, he who pays the piper dictates the tune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the same group of individuals. My problem here is this: I live in this city for a while. I've been in politics for a while. I don't like politicians insulting my intelligence. We know what's going on. The mayor, the city council members, is you pay, you play. That's what's happening. And it's very emotional to me because when I go to East Austin especially, we pretend as if we don't know what's going on in the city of Austin, as if blacks don't exist. And it shouldn't be that way, to be frank with you. And the whole issue of gentrification, we know that. We know how to fix it. And to add insult to the injury, when we bring up our issues, especially the African community issues to the city council, oh, let's set up a task force to deal with it. We're tired of task force to deal with any issue. We know what to do. Do the right thing. That's the problem. But politicians will not do the right thing because they take us for granted. And as this CodeNext is part of it.
How do I get one of them jobs on them task forces? Maybe I can afford to live here.
Call the
They,
mayor.
they were looking for somebody from this. They had nobody up until Saturday when I went there. They didn't have not one person from the southeast neighborhood.
Let me tell you how
on
it
the
works.
task force.
But let me tell you how it works. The task force. If you make a lot of noise, they feel like you're a problem. They recruit you and give you a position.
question?
Task force. So you can shut you up. I know how they play the game. You know.
Well, you know, Sam, I was thinking about something you mentioned a moment ago. I remember when I was in my 20s, the influence or the sphere of influence that my older sister was in, I noticed that so many of them and that generation moved. They left Austin, Texas, period. They went to Atlanta and got better jobs, and some of them have never come back. But these were some big name players, black people in Austin. You know, some were politicians, but they left.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say all of it has been due to gentrification, which we know a lot of it has been, but a lot of it has been black people have left because they felt like they didn't have an opportunity here.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
they've left. I mean, back in the day, excuse me, but Even there was a lot of Africans here.
Yeah, absolutely.
They left, went to Dallas, wherever they at now, probably on the East Coast somewhere. But we don't have the African community like we used to back when I was in my 20s either.
Yep.
Yep.
So-
I seen it firsthand with the church I go
Absolutely,
to. I go to church on the airport in 16th and Harvey. Church of the New Testament.
That
You
was
know?
the church we were brought
That's
up
what I'm
in.
saying. That's where I go. So you know Pops.
You got a question, Mark?
You know my brother BJ.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
just
So
gotta-
yeah, so Pops helped raise me, since I was a kid, 5-6 years old, taking me to church every weekend. He was my first boxer. That's how I got into Sapoki. I'm a professional boxer. I fight on TV. I'm signed up. My first boxing coach was Pops down in Bisley.
He was a great man.
And that's what happened. So
A
yeah.
great community man.
He's still there. I see him every Sunday.
Great community. He was in
And that's where I
4-1
got
at
my.
the
That's where I
community
got
center.
my. Yeah. So that's where I got my start at the Metropolis Rec Center.
That
And I got
right.
my start with community work because of Pops, because of that.
Awesome.
But I seen it in my church. We had Sister Kurt, her son, who he went out to go be the mayor of Dallas.
Yes.
Right. Went out to go.
He's in D.C. now, I
He's
believe
in
it.
DC,
Well,
so
he
they
was
went out
when
to go
Obama
have
was there anyway.
opportunities and.
So
Man, I've seen it,
so
and I
much
know.
happened, and people leave for various reasons.
Absolutely, and
We shouldn't. Yeah, and it's just it's a number of things and.
Looks like
Now-
salad
now-
is left.
absolutely. But just like Ms. Jackson said, you see, some of us we know what's happening. Some of us are afraid to say the truth, what is happening, because, like I said, pay to play. If you go down to the east side, there's a neighborhood that you'll be shocked. The kind of condo in just in the middle of neighborhood. Look at, you'll be
No,
like,
we're not shocked anymore. No. We haven't been shocked for quite a while now.
Throw it in here, Chris.
I just got one comment about it. I've been perusing the computer in there, looking at the websites and all that other stuff. CodeNext seems to have their one word in there that seems to be repeated over and over is affordability. And I hate to say that if I would call on this duplex that's opening up here off of 7th Street and ask their rent, I have a feeling it's going to be $2,000 and
Or
not
more.
a my prospect. What is that affordable? Affordability. Affordability to me is a rent of under $1,000 for a place to live.
Well, that's a one-bedroom starting in Austin now.
I would say even that.
Just something to that.
Well, you go for it. That was my 2 cents I'm throwing in here.
Well,
Thank you.
Affordability.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Well, one of the things, when you do a lot of presentations and you encounter a lot of people who maybe know the word CodeNext and they have no idea what it is, a lot of them will ask me, well, CodeNext, that's the affordability thing. That's for affordable housing, isn't it? No, let me assure you that CodeNext is a building tool. It is not an affordability tool, and there is no section in CodeNext which is devoted to affordability. There is nothing baked into it. There are no mandates. The closest thing you get to affordability, they are trying to continue to use what's called a density bonus. And it has been around for 14 years, and it is about the closest thing you can call an abject failure. It's just really not been effective at generating affordable housing. And that is all that is in CodeNext that even and it's a voluntary program. It's not even mandated for builders. That's all that's in CodeNext that even touches.
What?
Density bonus.
program.
Density
Density
bonus.
bonus.
Are you,
Wow.
are-
I'm sorry,
do you
go
know
ahead.
what that is? I'll give you a short.
No, but when you get around, I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, it is a voluntary program for developers that allows them additional entitlements. In other words, they can build a building.
We can make more money.
Well, they can build it differently than they would under normal circumstances. If they add affordable units to this project, then they get to build the project with additional entitlements: higher, bigger, wider, less impervious cover, or more impervious
And
cover.
how many units is there?
In 14 years, let me pull a couple of quick numbers out for you, because I did a little research, punched a few of my own numbers here.
It's not working, but yeah, we got plenty of time.
Oh, it's pretty
It's
brief.
not working?
No, it's working. It's working. Just don't pay attention to that one.
Oh.
Bear with me.
So basically, just like what Mr. Ed, was saying, we
I know it's here. Here it is.
affordability or affordable housing. It's again, Remember the old airport where we have a Dell Children's Hospital?
Mueller.
Oh, we're going to build affordable housing for those that can afford, you know.
Well, that's the East Side Tarrytown.
Exactly. Go down there. How much?
That is the
they
East
have
Side
cost over
Tarrytown.
there.
And even that, even though what
I
they,
like
what,
that East Side Tarrytown, yeah.
even what they designate
Westlake.
as affordable is not truly affordable. You know, they say
No.
80%,
Affordable for who?
Right,
For
I
who?
mean,
Exactly.
80% of the median income. You know,
Back up
that's.
to you a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, that's 80% of the median income is roughly around $60,000 a year, I believe, here in Austin, and not too many people where I come from or myself make $60,000 a year. You know, we're more in the $20,000 to $40,000 a year range. Some of us who are lucky make 50 and 60. We do have some pretty well off people in the Dust Streets neighborhood. But not all of us, you know, and so that's what we have to brace for. We have to brace for. And so also, I had something to add to what you were saying. Not just the black population. We should be inclusive. The total original Austinite population, blacks,
Hispanic.
Hispanics, white people, you know, everybody, Indians, everybody who has been
Everybody's
here.
been affected by it
You know, it's
because-
crazy. So even though Dust Springs, we're predominantly what I would say 80% Hispanic. A quarter of that, or maybe even less, is declining of people who have been born and raised here. Everybody's going to Kyle, Del Valley, you know, Buda, and I'm
that's
sure
expensive to
Pflugerville,
live now.
you know,
Yeah.
all of that,
It is
man.
now.
So,
Round Rock and Pflugerville off
Yeah.
the chart.
but and
It's
that's
so
that's
expensive.
that's what we're doing as a group. We're all in it. It's not. I don't think we should even. I mean, we have to talk about people as a class and race, but it's
So
all
what's the
inclusive.
solution? Or how do we fix it? How do we stop it?
I think
That's
we
the
stopped
thing, there's
running.
different- yeah.
I think we stopped running.
Hmm.
We stopped running. And we face it on. We face them.
Absolutely.
We stopped running. You know why? Because it's so quick and easy to say, I am so sick and tired of this. I just want to leave Austin. I can say that because I've said it. So I'm just saying, stop running, face them. We need to face them.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I talk about what you just said? A lot of that's trouble because me and Mom say we want to run too. But, you know, my doctor's at the VA clinic there, it's close by like that. She has cancer. Texas Oncology Center, it's not too far away. And when we say, well, we'll look out by Cedar Creek somewhere out toward Bastrop. I was saying you're talking about a good drive. If I want to go to,
Can't get in.
if I get sick and I want to go to the clinic, that, you know, right then, I'm a long way out there.
Trust me, the toll road will be up before you know it.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
a whole nother story.
I say open them up for free. We pay for them.
Well, we have paid for them.
Well, they do
We
pay
paid
for 'em.
Open 'em
for
up.
free.
The point is that a lot of the older people,
You'll cut traffic 35 traffic in half.
But let me ask you this though. Do you think
that's right. If you make them, all them trucks, they get on that toll road.
That's
it's
it.
just
And they're on it.
You think
Not for this much money.
the construction right now going on 183 South, let's say 183 7th Street going to
Yes.
the airport. Do you think they're doing it just to benefit those that live in East Austin, or there's a
No,
plan?
that's
Oh,
been
no,
in the
yeah,
plan.
yeah,
for
it's
that's
To
been
get
in
rid
the
of
Yeah.
all those
Oh, yeah.
people out
we
there
knew that was going to
and
happen.
move in and take over.
Over 10 years ago.
It's a game. So we know, like I said, the city of Austin has a way. You know what obsessed me about this whole process?
Where Chica Lane, the low income guy?
Yeah, those that run the city of Austin are Democrats. Let's be real. That's why I get upset.
White liberals as Gavino
Now,
calls
you
them.
can't get upset because then some Republicans need to run.
That's true.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
but
just saying.
But the same people will come and tell you that Republicans are bad.
Yeah.
But now they have a chance in the city of Austin to implement those policies they believe in. Equality, affordability. They're not doing it.
Of course not.
That's why some of us get upset about it.
Well, it's
It's funny.
neoliberalism.
And you're going to have to run again.
So-
There's a question I want to ask you. I want to ask you about that $600 billion bond that got signed into the thingy last time. Will CodeNext have anything to do, or would that code?
The transportation bond?
Yeah, that transportation bond, and
Okay.
we know that it was more than about transportation.
Oh, absolutely.
So I just
I
want to know,
completely
would
agree.
CodeNext have anything to do, or would it help that in some kind of way?
Well, that's a very valid question. I've had some good, interesting conversations on that. I think the transportation bond, a lot of those people that heavily promoted it saw it as the door opener for CodeNext. Because once you have in place the the infrastructure, meaning in this case, they're going to put medians down and limit left turns. They're going to, in some cases, narrow lanes and add bike lanes, bus dedicated
And
lanes.
roundabouts.
Roundabouts.
That get on your nerve.
Traffic control.
These are many of the components of the transportation bond make it easier to implement CodeNext. And
They go hand in hand.
I believe they go hand in hand, and the transportation bond was step one of a two-step process, and CodeNext is step two. And I'll
What can we do to make sure the right thing is done?
put CodeNext on the ballot. And then you can, if you decide it's not for you and it's not for Austin, if you decide that's the direction that Austin needs to go, we need to stop this, you will have a chance to vote it down. If without it on the ballot, you are standing in front of a speeding freight train, the council's going to pass it, and it's going to be implemented with whatever changes they add to it, add on to, or tweaks they make to draft 3.
So won't you tell our listeners now, those ones that have not voted yet, even in early voting, what to expect, what to look for on that ballot?
Well, it is not.
It's not this time around?
It's not this time around.
It's not this time around. It'll be in November.
It'll be in November. We are
Oh,
petition,
yes.
we are
Okay.
petitioning to have it on the November ballot. And by the way, a little shameless plug here, if you're out early voting or on election day,
Important shameless plug it.
okay, if you're out there early voting or on election day, we have a lot of volunteers. I'm not going to tell you we're going to be able to cover every single early
it is
voting
on the
location.
screen.
All right, there you go. Look for the people with a clipboard and a pen.
Thank you, Mark.
Because they are essentially out there to solicit your signature to put CodeNext on a ballot.
Awesome.
We want to have it on the ballot in November, so you will have an opportunity to say, this is not the right idea for Austin.
If I
If you
can
think
add
it
something to
is, that's,
I've had some people come from early voting and tell you that you have to go find it. They won't tell you where it's at. That they had some trouble finding where they were signing the petition at.
well, you'll see, we're about the only people standing out there with a clipboard.
so just
Most
clipboard.
of the candidates are handing out literature.
Yeah.
We're the people hanging on to literature, and we want you to sign something.
10-4.
Look for the clipboard.
Look for
Take
the
a moment and
clipboard.
find them.
So
By the way, if you happen to be up on the north side, I'm working, except for this afternoon, I'm working at the Ben-Hur Shrine Temple on Rockwood.
Early vote?
Early voting location. It's close to the old North Cross Mall. If you decide you want to help us, swing by. I'll give you some petition blanks. Go out and get them signed and bring them back.
Okay, as far as your comment that you made about asking election officials about where to find them, they're not going to give you information. They're not
we're
bound
not.
to.
That's right, they're not bound to.
They can't give it to you.
No,
but
That's something
they gotta
what I
remain
was
neutral.
concerned about.
But the other thing is, how many people are aware in Dove Springs about this? Do you know?
Me and about, I say 20, 25 other people in my neighborhood. I mean, yeah. So that's also. I don't even want to say that. I don't know. It's not. My answer. My answer
outreach to the community
yes, my
more.
answer is it's
Yeah,
not
exactly.
as it's
Make
not
them
as
more
enough.
aware.
It's not as
How do
enough
you
as it
sell
should.
it?
It's not as enough as it should be.
Well,
That's the thing.
That's
For
the thing
especially
is
for the
getting out
budget
there
that CodeNext
telling
has had for PR and stuff like that. But people can get out. They can go to. We can contact George Morales. You can contact Ricardo Zavala. You contact myself. I'm working with Community Nakamati, Save Our City Austin.
Yeah.
I've been block walking in Franklin Park myself.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah, well, getting it out to the community and getting them knowledge of this
Oh,
is,
yeah.
is,
Let them know what's
is a
going on.
difficult
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Because, we can talk about it here on the show. I could put it up on the internet, blah, blah, blah. But actually getting to these community meetings and all this other stuff between now and getting the word out.
Right.
I can do what I can at my
Yeah.
where I,
well, what I've been
work
doing is
at,
I've been
you
going.
know.
So my church, I've been going to all the different churches. I've been going to.
and you tell two
Awesome.
friends
Yeah,
and
so-
they tell two friends and
Uh-huh.
so on and so
well,
on.
especially the church people love to participate in political activism. I can tell you that everybody's a registered voter.
Awesome.
Some people.
And so that's what I've been doing. So I've been
So you
going
have
to the churches.
petitions, I can take one with
I have,
me.
yeah,
to church?
Yeah, we
I
have
have
extra,
quite a few with
we
me.
have-
I
yes,
have it all.
yes. So
Right.
if you have a church
I'll
that you go
take
to, so I've been going to the
hey,
church.
Mr. English.
Hold on, I'm sorry,
just
one
to-
second. I was
Oh,
Yeah, sorry about that.
Go ahead
I
and
was just
finish
trying to talk about the churches that I was visiting, the Church of the New Testament, and Goodwill Church on South Congress has been there for 114 years. So y'all look into that. It's a historic church. They're awesome. Give them all the credit. They're good people, and they're original Austinites like yourself, like myself, and they all want to just stay here. And so thank you, Goodwill Church.
Mr. English, my understanding is what you're trying to do is basically to let people know what is going on, number one.
Absolutely. Public education is part of this process.
By defining the issue, because the way you define the issue matters a lot.
Absolutely.
We can talk about it all day. People don't get a point, which is how I simplify the whole thing based on what we just talked about. If you don't like what is going on in your neighborhood, if you don't like what the city of Austin is doing to you, or how they operate in terms of taxation, displacement, gentrification, you have an opportunity to vote on this CodeNext to say no and put a stop to it. But if we allow it to continue, it's going to be more disastrous than anticipated.
Many people feel that way. Absolutely. Feel that CodeNext is the gas pedal to the metal for what we've seen for the last 10, 15 years. A lot of people are concerned that it's only going to make it worse. And that's our entire initiative, our entire purpose here is to give people a chance to say, wait a minute, we're putting the brakes on here because we're headed down the wrong road.
Yeah.
What I've been telling people is if you want condos and luxury retail, hey, leave it up to CodeNext. If you don't, you want your single family neighborhoods, you want to continue to be a family oriented, non-party city, you got to vote to put CodeNext on the petition.
So is it possible, so while we do collect the names for the petition, does it also make sense to explain to the voter, say, look, we are doing this petition because we are against this CodeNext, so they understand what they're signing up for. Because if we just say, hey, this is for CodeNext, sign this petition to be on the ballot, they may not know why you're doing it.
Well, and I have my little short spiel I give to the folks that come up and want to sign the petition and ask what it's about. And I try to at least be as nonpartisan as possible, because what I tell them is CodeNext at this point and throughout this process, there has been absolutely, and there is no plan in place to allow you as a citizen to vote yes or no on this, to say I like it or I don't. We want it on the ballot so you have that opportunity.
Exactly, and we need to get that out there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because, the way we are going right now is not the right way. Like myself, every opportunity I have on Facebook, I'm going to talk about it. Social media is very important.
You have a Facebook page that we can go and like and share?
Well, you can look at mine. I put a lot of things up, including CodeNext. But my recommendation would be the same website that we put up on the screen there just a little earlier, indyaustin.org, and that's spelled INDY. Indy Austin also has a Facebook page, and a lot of the material is mirrored. So what you see on one, you'll see on the other. Please seek it out. There's a lot of useful information on there. You can also download the petition if you can't swing by a location and get one. There's a lot of information there that I think would be very educational for folks to get some idea of what CodeNext is all about and the concerns that have been raised.
How many petitions do we need?
We need 20,000 registered, verified City of Austin voters. They have to live with CodeNext only.
Deadline is?
There is no official deadline. The petition of this type, you have a rolling 180-day period to get, in our case, and in most cases, 20,000 validated registered voters to sign. Now, it's our hope, and I think we're well on our way to doing that. We want to wrap it up by March 15 or by the end of March at the latest, because that is the end of our 180 days from when we began. So we'd like to have that package together. We'll have our signatures validated. We'll have it into the city. We'll get it on the November ballot.
I had a question to ask you. Can I validate the signatures myself, that way it's efficient that whenever I turn it into y'all and it's
Excellent.
like already?
Excellent point. I've been a part of a lot of petition drives, and a good petition drive always does one thing. It takes a few volunteers, but you go through the signatures as they come in and you pre-validate them. The reason for that is when you turn them into the city, there aren't any surprises. You know you got it locked in. Yeah. They may challenge a handful of them here and there, but when you turn it in, you know you got the deal. You got the deal done. You got the signatures. There's some petition drives don't bother to do that, and then they're very rudely surprised when they turn in 20,000 signatures and only 14,000 of them are valid. We won't do that.
So
Ours
what's
will
on
be-
what's on the petition? Name, address, either
Date of
show
birth,
voter registration,
register to vote,
date of
yeah.
birth.
So the most
Yeah,
important thing,
you're
the
registered to vote.
most important
get
thing
that.
is to
Okay.
get the name and the date of birth, so that they can verify that that's that person,
Is a
and then the
registered-
address.
Registered voter.
Sometimes they have different addresses, but they're
Okay.
still a registered voter, and most of the times they are at that address. But sometimes they're at a different address. But if they can tell if it's that person reasonably, then yes.
The required information is a printed name, a signature, your street address, your zip code, the county that you live in, and there are 2 counties. Austin does extend in Williamson County. And then we have to have either your date of birth or your voter registration number, because that certainly expedites the validation process. There's optional if you'd like to give us your phone number or your email and let us send you some updates. We don't spam the heck out of you. That's not a problem. But we will send you some updates on where the petition drive is, where signing events are, and things like that. And Pokey, do you want those numbers now? Because it's
Yeah.
pretty brief.
Yeah, it's, we're getting down to about 10 minutes or so. so
It takes about 2 at that.
I know it's important.
The only, as I said, and I want to repeat this, CodeNext is not an affordability tool. It is a building tool. And the closest thing, the only thing that CodeNext includes is a voluntary program called a density bonus program to encourage builders to build affordable units. Now, it's been around for 14 years. We've had this package, these options available. In 14 years, a grand total of 1,193 units, affordable units, have been built on the density bonus program.
Wow.
That boils down to, let me put that in perspective for you. That's 85.5 units per year. Now, that also equates out to 9.5 affordable units per 100,000 citizens.
9?
9.5, and think of it this way. Using generally accepted numbers, we have about 110 people a day moving into Austin and about 25 leaving. That's a net gain of about 85 new residents per day. The voluntary density bonus program has generated enough housing to house 1 day's influx out of an entire year. 1 day out of
Good job.
365, that's the number of affordable units the density bonus program is generating. We can cover all those new residents for 1 whole day out of a year.
And they say voluntary.
It is,
Add something without, I don't want to get in there. Who monitors those affordable housing units to make sure they're going to affordable units?
that's a very
Who
good,
monitors those affordable housing units?
that's a
Nobody.
very good question,
Yeah,
because the
nobody.
answer, if you get it from any of number of options within city staff, well, we look at it when we can. There is
We're busy.
there's to my knowledge, and if someone knows that I'm incorrect, notify me, but there is no official monitored regular regulation and oversight of whether or not those units are actually being built, or if they stay affordable. They can certainly be turned back into market rate units at some point in the future
That is
if
subsidy.
nobody's watching it.
And they can be leased to someone who doesn't need affordable.
I don't know how well they monitor the recipients of these, or that are
Cash, if you're a waiter, you make cash?
there's a big black hole as far as monitoring those that this program falls into.
It's amazing.
That's a subsidy.
Well, it was designed not to be
to
monitored.
work, exactly.
I mean,
They design it to fail.
really.
It's a public relations move. I'll just be point blank about it. It's a Band-Aid that looks good and does basically
So
nothing.
with that being said, what are the stats on us being the biggest major city that has the least amount of affordable housing? Do we rank up there? with the nation cities?
I haven't looked at that data, but I'm sure that we're fast approaching San Francisco status. We're on that road. I'm always amused, and the mayor has kind of backed off of this now, but for quite a while he was fond of saying, "We don't want to become another San Francisco."
Really?
Oh, he used to use
He
that.
would just
We
stand that in,
already-
he would just stand that in public.
He
because-
used to use that line pretty regularly, but because so many of the directions that Austin has chosen over the last several years point us precisely in the San Francisco direction.
Exactly.
I don't think he says that much anymore.
Paid sick leave. Remember the paid
It's
sick
already
leave.
happened.
Oh, it's Seattle, it's Portland, it's San Francisco.
Oregon.
Mm.
Well, I believe
Oregon,
Portland
you
has
know.
taken regulations to sort of hold on to their original offsites and also slow down people coming in, if I'm not mistaken.
You think it's slow down?
No,
You
no,
think
I'm
so?
saying no, no. I'm saying I thought that they were trying to do that, but it didn't.
They're
work. Like, that's
encouraging
what
it.
I'm
They
saying,
encourage people to move to Austin. Because
Yeah.
to them, it's like, oh, see, we're
No, no, no.
working
I'm
for
saying
you.
also. I'm saying Portland was doing that. I'm saying Portland had some programs that were doing that. But
Well, I've met a
I don't
lot
know
of
if that
people from
worked.
Portland and Seattle that have moved here.
know?
Moved here and said, I've been in Austin 5 or 6, 7 years now, and I moved here from Portland or Seattle. Austin's just becoming another Portland or Seattle.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, you take that and make out of it what you want, but they seem to be very unhappy that Austin was moving in those directions.
Yeah. Socialist city.
I'm happy about it too. I was gonna ask, has there been any kind of poll to see, if we do get this on the ballot, what's the chance that it'll get voted down?
That's a good question, and there is no, I really can't give you an accurate answer on it. One of the things that, and I'm just being really realistic here, I think we have a pretty good chance of getting it on the ballot. But the reality is that there are potentially billions of dollars of development over the next 10, 20, 30 years riding on this. And I think you're going to see, if we get it on the ballot, an awful lot of money spent to beat us. An awful lot of money will be spent to beat
I think
us.
me and Casey need to have a party, free food or something out there in Dove Springs. We can get the people aware of
Well,
what's going
so
on.
that's the thing. Dove Springs has a high percentage potential for people to turn out to vote. We have 50,000 people in Dove Springs, 78744 alone. That's one zip code, 50,000 and growing. So that's
But do they participate? Or do
well,
they
that's the
vote?
thing. So there's
They don't
potential.
participate.
There's potential. So what's happening is the people who weren't always typically what you would consider voters are seeing what's happening to the east side.
Yeah,
right?
they know it's
And
coming
they
up.
know it's
We already
coming.
got
So
bicycle lanes
right,
going
exactly.
in.
So people like myself who never knew about community work until after 18 and started realizing the importance of it. People who come from the hood, where whatever you call Dove Springs, South Side, Southeast. What I'm saying, born and raised people like myself who took Austin for granted. That's another thing. Well, that's also what happened. That's also what happened to Austin. It wasn't always gentrified. We ourselves had to take credit and take responsibility and say, we took it for granted.
But do you also
And-
hold the city council members accountable? The city council members that
We
represent
try.
your district.
Well, we try
What
as
is she
people.
saying about all that?
She's in favor of CodeNext.
Okay, see.
Yeah, she's
Right,
part
she's in
of
favor of CodeNext, and she's in favor of growth in Austin and developing.
I'm very
Austin.
disappointed in her because a bunch of them over at the city hall. Because I know when they were running to be elected, I know what they were saying. Now they changed.
Well, even then, I think even when I ran for myself in city council in 2016, and I ran against her, and
Got me coming in one more time.
yeah, we were talking about that was one of the discussions
Yeah.
was CodeNext, and even then she supported CodeNext.
Yeah,
in the city
It's
council.
she
unfortunate.
sat here on this panel, Delia.
Yeah.
She sat
The
here,
guys,
and I looked at her and I asked her, do you support gentrification in Dove Springs? And she said no.
But
That's
today,
because we
She said-
didn't
Well,
divide.
no, we're not. Of course, we're not going to support gentrification.
Yeah,
but
it-
I can
it-
support
so-
maybe a tool that might enable
But she
that.
said she wasn't in support of any kind of stuff like that.
but she is supporting it right now. That's the point.
Exactly. Now, I wish I
That's
could
the
pull up that
point.
video. I'm sure we got it online somewhere.
We do.
But I'd pull up that little clip where she said that she wasn't in support of it.
I guess when they get to the city hall, something happens there that they change.
Take him off.
Changed.
You're right.
There has to be
Bring that
something
back.
at the
See,
city
even-
hall.
and
Well, that's
even-
a great subject for another trailer park show, because I live down at City Hall. I see that happen.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I should apologize. I'm gonna have to go on more often.
Whenever time is available, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to participate.
Yeah, we've got a lot of city issues to cover.
Oh, yeah.
We have. I like the idea. We need to have some kind of a party out there.
Yep.
Dove Springs
A
Park.
concert. That's what I was thinking, man.
George
Play it.
Morales, get all up out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Well, are they
Talk
gonna,
about this.
The problem is they're gonna come and eat your food, drink your drink, and they're gonna vote. That's the problem. You have to the neighbor. Look at it. If you look at the neighborhood,
We can't give them no alcohol now because that gets a lot.
maybe that
nowadays.
will. Well,
I know free food. I mean free beer. We them all.
Yeah.
out there.
They will
Give it to
show
them
up.
after they vote.
there you go. After
Give
you
it to 'em
vote,
out.
bring your car. You voted. You get food.
Well,
See what
too bad.
happens.
But he wants to get something going before then.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Well,
I'm thinking just
You
before
need to
November.
bring you need to bring the community together, and I
You're right.
understand what you're
You're right.
saying.
Don't
You're
vote,
right.
you get a ticket to the party.
Hey, that's right.
Yeah, I guess voting day. But well, they need to be informed first and foremost.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
You know,
I
first and foremost,
take
you know,
some
they need to
ground.
be informed, and
Well,
that
we
way
have
they
a
know.
whole time.
Yeah,
They know what's going on and stuff like that. What the
that way
issues
they
are.
know they can have something to, and it doesn't always have to be all detailed. Not everybody understands the
Yeah.
Me myself, I wrote my thesis on CodeNext in 2015 when I went to school. It has even completely changed even since then, and I'm somebody who's familiar with it, you know. So imagine just the modern people don't have time to study this stuff. They have jobs, they have you know work, they have school, they're raising children.
Not involved,
They
yeah.
just need to know what's going on
Just
and
break
how
it down,
how it's
simplify
going
it.
to affect them,
Yeah,
and
simplify it
that
to
this
them.
will affect you, and you need to either vote on it or not. And this is why, because this is how important it
Yeah,
is.
CodeNext, the education process around CodeNext is absolutely critical. The first draft was 1,100 plus pages. The second draft was 1,300 plus pages. We're now at draft 3 with 1,500 plus
That's
pages.
corruption right
You
there.
think
And-
that's not Obamacare?
But you know what? And so another thing, what's going on here? We have spent $8.2 million
That's a lot
on
of
this
money.
process.
That's a lot of money.
Major cities like Chicago, you know, New York, LA, probably haven't spent that combined
We've only got
It's,
another
it's
2.5
Austin.
Yeah,
to redevelop
Deputy
all of the
Austin is so
Yeah.
good at
land
spending
development.
let
someone
me-
else, everybody else's money.
Let me get in here.
you don't
Like
have
what he said about all those pages. You know, not everybody will want to study
Right.
such
Read everything.
pages, and let us not overemphasize the power of social media,
Yes.
especially Facebook.
Facebook.
You know, people might not want to read, you know, a physical paper, but when it's
visual
out there
picture.
on Facebook,
Picture.
and when
Like
it
a
is,
PowerPoint.
You put
with-
some
yeah,
PowerPoint
when
out
it
there.
is,
We'll be back next week, folks. We got lawyers
video.
coming on. And 2 weeks left. Sam back on. I don't know what we're doing after
Judy's
that.
coming up.
I'm
Judy's
coming
coming
up.
out so too.
You be
on
coming
the
out there
12th.
in 2
Yeah,
weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
I'm excited about next week because we got the lawyers coming on. And I don't know nothing about lawyer stuff. So. Mark Phelan
Mark
and
will be here.
Mark Pulliam will be on. There's been a couple of cases on. There's one right now concerning how we elect our judges. And, you know, we had the JP candidates on, and a couple of other, some of them phoned in. The amount of money coming from law firms to some of these judicial candidates, there's a lot of out-of-state money going to try and get DA candidates elected in the state that aren't really friendly toward, well, I don't know, it's politics or something. It's like,
Or something. Politics or
we're
something.
gonna have somebody
It
else
is.
explain that to us.
Policy.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer we got left, about another minute maybe. I appreciate y'all coming on. We will be back on this subject again. I kinda like the idea, we should have some kind of party and done
Oh yeah,
things.
they love that, man. You know, people. One thing I noticed of me being involved in the community the past few years, people love food, people love music. You know, people like a good
Free
time. 'Cause
stuff. People love
what
free
we are.
stuff.
That's what we are. We're Austin, man. We like to have a good time. We work hard, but we also like to have a good time and enjoy Austin, our beautiful city. We love it. Sunny, 300 days out of the year. You know, it's
Yeah.
Austin, Texas. We like to have a good time.
There's some things we want to keep
And
that
let's
way.
and so you tell the people you want to keep celebrating, you want to keep having this party time. Let's get involved. Let's go and vote. Let's
And
go
then
find out what
down
CodeNext
Chapman, we
is.
already got
Yeah.
bicycle lanes over there. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
first step.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna
Once those
put
come,
on
that's it.
35 very soon.
And that's not a community to put a bicycle lane.
You're right.
I'm
People
trying to
cannot-
tell you.
Around like they used
live in
to.
Austin, Texas. I don't know about riding a bicycle summertime, 105 degrees in the heat.
Yeah, anyway.
People that can do it. People can do it. People
Well,
do it, and
that
people
was-
have to
that
do
was
it.
surprising
And
they put
people
on-
have to
they
do
could put
it.
on
Sometimes
35
people
one
have
day.
to do it, and I
Oh,
appreciate
you're
it. So sometimes people have to ride a bike. You know.
There it is.
Alright.
Okay, bye, folks. Yeah, I can't tell because it's 15:30 we go off. But with the clock all screwed up, and mine says
I remember.
59, so
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's
it's
pretty
nice
good.
to-
I appreciate
Yes,
y'all.
ma'am.
I remember you at a summer ride one time.
You'll be back, huh?
yeah.
2
I've
weeks.
been out to meetings all over town
Back
at
in the
different
day.
times, you know. And I remember something I always, you just remember
talk about when
the
you
funny
come back.
things that people say to you.
Keeps you back.
They're not
I was
earth
sending- I
shattering,
was
but they
sending
just
to
stick
you.
with you.
We're gonna
I
talk
remember
about
when I was here
a lot
and
of
running for
oil
city council in
companies,
2014.
Shell, ExxonMobil.
Okay.
I don't know how we got